We
All right,
are
we're live.
Hey.
Hey, everybody.
So this is another episode of the KEW Exchange, as unprofessional as possible, but as real as possible as well. So today we're doing a group conversation on something. I think embracing your own power is what we went with. So I have Jennifer, I have Jenny, and I have Linda. So I'm not doing last names because I will mess up every single one of them. So I'm not going there. I know my personal limitations. I know my personal limitations, so that's it. Like, I'm just going straight for it, right? You just acknowledge and move through.
Michael.
So, yes, you are.
I so am, right?
Well, that's why you put your last name phonetically, right? Just because.
Thank
so
you.
And I would still mess that up. So I'm not even going to attempt it. Like, it's just.
Well, there's plenty of grace to go around here.
Jenny.
Now
I got my halo, so like you'll be fine.
We're in good company,
you darling. Yeah. All right. So what do you want to know first, Michael? We are here to preach it.
The rustic atmosphere of the middle.
Right.
All right. So why don't we do a quick introduction of each person? I mean, Jennifer, why don't you start? I think the whole world knows Jenny by now because she's been on my show a bunch of times. But we'll start with Jennifer.
Right. Sure. Hi, Michael, Linda, Jenny. So great to be with you today. My name is Jennifer Beets. I am in Winnipeg, Canada. And I am a life coach, and I'm so excited to be on this call today to connect with all of you. Thank you for hosting, Michael.
You are very welcome, and I'm excited to have you and get to know you because we don't know each other and we're not connected yet. So it's good to get to know you. And so Linda, your turn.
Thank you. I'm a book in 30 days coach, and my husband, Terry Earthman Nichols, and I came together like 10 years ago, stepped into the offline coaching world doing events, then to the online coaching world. And between the two of us, we've had a lot of different experiences in life. So kind of that well-rounded, okay, what don't you know? We probably know, and if not, we'll know who does, because we're big networkers, as you know, Michael. You and Terry have done some stuff together.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's great to have you too, and I've had Terry on the show, so it was only. And Jenny, for anyone who might not know you, which I find.
Oh, I'd be happy to introduce. Actually, on the lives that we have done, Michael, I don't think I ever was that polite that I really introduced myself. I'm a behavioral science expert for management and business development, and I work within a organizational healthcare in Sweden. So I am surrounded by an amazing team of people who get to support the individual, the human being, the employee, and the manager, and like everybody within the organization. So that's what I get to do. It's really cool.
So just for clarification, I am me, and that's how I describe myself. But I am definitely having internet problems, and all the glitches that do happen is on my side. So if I ever freeze, take pictures, because who knows what face it might be. And we will roll from there. And we'll just go with it, because I'm not worried about it. It's life, and it's live. So exactly. I am sure there's more embarrassing pictures out there somewhere, so I'm not worried about this. Right. The life I've lived, you can't get away without it. So luckily there was Polaroid cameras back then. So before every phone had a camera. I feel like I'm 6,000 years old. I'm only 41, but that's okay. So
that's another story.
Yes. So let's who wants to start talking about owning our own power and embracing it and stepping into it?
Yeah.
Go, Jenny, go.
Yeah, I was just thinking right away, like, oh, who's going to claim this space first? But really, when it comes to claiming your space, we're not in competition, right? Like, it's
No.
not about like who gets to get there first. It's really about the fact that there is a space in this world that is mine and only mine. And if I'm not using my voice, and if I don't show up, you know, courageously, perfectly imperfect, as you say, Linda, as me, then
Yes.
the world is going to be missing out. So,
Mhm.
so that's just the first thing that comes to mind. That it's not about being competitive. It's about being me and understanding that that's a gift.
Yeah, man.
And for all of you, like Michael, Jennifer, Linda, that you are showing up as you, that is such a huge gift to me, because I get to deeply connect with all of you. So that's the first thing that came to mind, and I'm just going to pass that on. Let's keep it flowing. Who's
Mhm.
next?
Mhm. Okay, I'll step in and just say that I have been on a
Always hear me talk.
journey.
People always hear me talk, so you just jump in.
Say that again.
Oh, we didn't quite catch that, Michael.
Just jump in. I think that's
Just
his
jump in.
message.
Okay. Yeah.
Go for it.
I'm
You probably
freezing
didn't
again.
hear. You passed
This
it
is
off to Jen.
this is
This is live. This is real life.
Right?
Go, Jen,
Because he
go.
keeps freezing.
this is
Right?
Okay. Okay. In 10 seconds, I.
Or less.
No, you
I
get
was
So-
you
just
get
going to share.
you get more time now, Jennifer. You earned a lot more time.
Oh,
sorry, guys.
I was going to share how I've been on a journey to reclaiming my inner power. That I was just realized that I was sleeping. I was living a life on autopilot, unaware of a lot of what was going on around me. And really, part of my story is that it wasn't until I slowed down, I really kept myself so busy and so distracted that I didn't really have a better understanding of who I was. It was for me, the process, for me, I found meditation, and that just allowed me to slow down enough to really hear my voice. And as Jenny was saying, I reclaimed my voice. And instead of suffering in silence, I'm now showing up in places to increase that visibility.
Very cool.
How about you, Linda?
Thanks. For me, you know, this is a second marriage for me. So I raised my kids in my first marriage, and Terry and I always joke we both had 33-year starter marriages. So that was a life that started with, or a marriage that started with, I'll back up a little bit further into high school. Between my junior and senior year of high school, I lost my father to suicide just before school started for my senior year. And then I think it was about February, I had a gymnastics accident, and I was headed for professional dance, had promised my dance teacher I wouldn't be on the equipment. And I had a coach come to me and say, we're going to be short on kids. We could really use your beautiful ballet arms. You could do like the balance beam and just do a round off the end. It would be a big deal. And I'm like, all right. And all of a sudden I'm an empath. So I like knew what was going to happen and had this complete overwhelm, freak out in the locker room just beforehand. And so by the time I got out there to that beam, my coach's eyes were super locked on me because she was really worried about me. And when the girl had me dismounted, she slid the mat, and we didn't have a crash pad at that time. I was just watching some gymnastics now, and that was like collegiate, and they have actually the mats built up a lot higher. You're not that far off the ground anymore in gymnastics. So I was like really pleased to see that. And it's a very stable, like not so much a crash pad either now. So that was cool to see. Anyways, so I did a round off the end, and my right foot came down on the metal foot of the beam, and I keeled over on my right shoulder. And then they like, put me in a bucket of ice, put my leg in a bucket of ice water, that was more torture than anything. So I ended up in the hospital, like admitted, and, going, oh God, now I have to call my dance teacher and tell her what I've done, So it's long story short, they're like, you're going to be lucky if you walk, you'll never dance again. And so then as time passed, I did dance, and it was unclear if I could do like an 8-hour rehearsal. Because if you're going professional, your rehearsals are really long. And my dance teacher was a choreographer at an amphitheater in, is it Medora, South Dakota, North Dakota? I can never remember. Anyways, she asked me if I wanted to go out and spend the summer with the dance troupe. And if I couldn't make it through the 8-hour rehearsals, we'd figure it out. And I was like really excited to do that. Well, I was already dating this guy, and I knew I was going to marry him. I just knew it. And when I told him about this opportunity, he goes, well, you can go, but I might not be there when you get back. And it's like, what? Right? And then it was kind of like, well, I know I'm marrying him, so I might as well just not go. And that's how, I built a marriage off of that. Then we had super challenging kids, and yeah, it wasn't fun. So I was the housewife of a CFO. He traveled sometimes, and it's so funny because in one of my memoirs I just came out with, I let Jennifer read it ahead of time, and I said, like, I went to this retreat, where it was like to save my marriage kind of thing, and you wrote letters to each other in a spiral notebook, and then you exchange notebooks at the end of the day. And I kept that. I just wanted to see, if I had been making mistakes in my marriage, I didn't want to bring them into this second marriage. So we downsized from big houses and came into this marriage into like spacious, but 1-bedroom apartment. That spiral notebook made it. And so when Jennifer read that, I'm like, this is too much. I just dumped it all those letters in there. And she goes, no, leave it. And another friend said, no, leave it. Leave every word. And I'm like, what? Why? Because we saw how you were. We saw how desperately you wanted things to change. We just, that's not who you are now. You're like in your power now. And it was like, okay. That blew me away, because Jennifer knows if it should be in or not. My other friend's one of those, like, no, really? Every word. Like, okay. So that's kind of part of my, stepping in my power story. And then I had a shaman for a coach, for my very first coach. And she brought it out that, no, you're the dancer. And so I had moved into special ed. I did special ed for way over 30 years. And like, I was the special ed teacher, right? And everybody at school knew me as the dancer. And then after my accident, I was like no longer the dancer in my mind. And so she kind of brought me back to that. So I was able to step back into who I really am that way too.
So I love how everybody has an individual spin on it, right? Because it's your own power, right? So it's this personal journey to find our own power. I'm one of those that truly believes in sharing space with others and creating safe spaces and having open conversations. And part of me stepping into my power is realizing that I had power in the first place, because I spent my childhood taking away my own power.
Yeah.
Because of the abuse and because of the trauma and everything else that I went through as a kid, I started hiding my abilities, my empathic abilities, my healing abilities, my clairvoyance. I started hiding it all, right? Because I didn't know how to handle it. I got tired of being called crazy. I got tired of going to shrinks, and I got tired of going to neurologists for brainwave scans because I was nuts. People were convinced I was crazy. And it just, for me, I took my own power away, and I hid my power, and I buried it behind drinking and drugs, because I started drinking at 9 years old to numb it out. Hardcore drugs by 12. So as I've gone on this enormous healing journey this last 13 months, which is not the first time that I'm spiritually connected and awake, but it is the last time because I'm staying here. And these last 13 months, in this enormous, tumultuous, crazy circumstance that I've been in, stranded 1,200 miles from home, 3 kids, took them out of an abusive house with my soon-to-be ex-wife, going through the divorce from hell to where they just keep doing 5-month continuances. There's not a Starbucks in sight, which really is the depressing part. And, it's just, I thrive off people. So I look at it and I say, well, the universe needed to teach me a lesson, which is to take me away from everything. And I needed to be isolated. I needed to be away from it all to find myself. And that's really what this last 13 months has done for me. So before I was even able to take my power back, I had to understand that I even had power. I had to heal that trauma and work through that trauma and work through the behaviors, the triggers, all the stuff around it, so that I can accept myself, believe in myself, and understand myself enough to realize I even had power. Then it was identifying what my values were and everything else around it so that I can step into it. Right. And this process has just been this amazing journey, right, of good, bad, ugly, all of it. Right. It's been torture. I always say, if anybody wants to go on the journey I went on, make sure you order cases and cases of tissues, because you're going to need every one of them. And well, no, I can always send children. Children I can send. My 3-year-old is one of the wisest human beings I've ever met in any
they're
in
still
any
super
life.
connected. Yeah, all the wise. I love
It's before they get disconnected, right before society conditions them to walk away from their curiosity and start hiding from it, right? So I'm very big on embracing it. I was talking on my show yesterday. I was telling the people that were with me, my good friends, and I was telling them that my son Thomas, he's like me, which is really dangerous in this world. He's just like me, so it's scary. My mom always said I'd have one like me, and I do. So his homework every night is to read this. Yeah, his homework every night is to read this book. So what he did is he got his iPad, he found it somewhere online, and it reads it to him every night because he found the shortcut. And I said to him, I said, I'm very proud of you I'm proud of you for being curious and looking for your own way. I don't care if it's a shortcut. I don't care if it's a long cut. Do it the best way that you absorb information. If you can get Siri to take the test for you, do that too. Like I'm okay with it. Be curious. Don't walk away from the curiosity, because getting it again after years and decades of being conditioned is ridiculously difficult.
Right. And really, why is that a shortcut? Someone doing something that the way it works for them, right? Some of us are visual and some of us are auditory. My son's so auditory that he could have sat down with a college professor, even when he was in grade school, and don't have the professor just download, the course, and he'd have passed the final in a heartbeat. It was that visual. Even in the Navy, if somebody got like a point something ahead of him, he'd crack a book. Otherwise, he never cracked a book. And he's making $90,000 a year, folks. He didn't go to college, so nay bad shiver, right? Let them be who they are. Yeah, and going to school and defending him, it's like, well, he doesn't show his work in math. And it's like, does he get any wrong? Well, not very often. I said, how about you two make a deal that if he gets something wrong, he'll show you his work. Oh, okay, I could do that. I'm like, wow. That's not norm.
That's what I needed as a parent, actually, because it was torture for me going through school. I'm auditory also. Everything is auditory for me. And, not showing work is key to my success in life, because it takes too much time. I believe in efficiency. I'll have the test done before the rest of the students have it. Like, what do I need to show the work for?
Right. That digs heels in right there. My daughter, when I pulled her out and brought her back, the teacher said, oh, we're going to be studying presidents. We'll be doing reports. This was 4th grade. And she said, everybody's picked their president. And, there's this one, this one, this one. She named, 4 presidents for her to choose from. And my daughter just sat there stoic through the whole thing, even when the teacher shut up. And the teacher who had a kid with EBD, thank goodness, emotional behavior disorder, she said, or you could study whatever president you'd like to. And she said, bam. And she named the president like that fast. I was like so lucky with that teacher,
That is
though.
also leadership, that we get to lead people the way they need to be led. Such a good example.
Yeah, and the education system doesn't do a good job of embracing that at all.
No, but they're, as teachers, they're not embraced either. That's academia is ego, badass, and so is the music. If you go on, or like the orchestras, or just people who really play classical piano, or just even opera. Like your teachers are telling you everything you did wrong. And they're just like so freaked out. I don't know if you guys know the book, The Art of Possibility. The Zanders wrote that. And Benjamin Zander is he leads the Philharmonic. That is the coolest book to see how he's a no box thinker and what he's done. He actually worked with a girl. It's like a spoiler alert, but you don't really know this at first, but she's actually blind. But he kept moving the orchestra further and further away from her. It was just phenomenal what he did to just turn her. And then they've even done work in Africa and stuff. It's a really great read. And then his wife went on to write Pathways to Possibility, and that's her awakening. And oh my gosh, you guys, I know you'll love that one too. And I'm not a reader, so if I recommend a book, you better read it because it's just off the charts.
Well, my mind is going in so many different directions here.
Yeah, right. Here we go.
As you guys are sharing, I can pick up on that. I can pick up on that, and on this topic of forming our space, there's the power of acceptance, of accepting ourselves first, so that we, as you did, Michael, give ourselves permission. We're not being around people waiting for them to give us permission to have, own our own choices. We're choosing that for ourselves. We're giving ourselves permission. And just listening to all of you in this space, being you and sharing, I'm telling you, a year ago, I would be so nervous. Oh my gosh. Just the situation of people noticing me, seeing me, listening to me would be super uncomfortable, because I did not realize that I am worthy of being heard and seen, of being on a live with you, Michael. And I'm connected to so many people who are they have such passion for their business, for their work. They have such a strong and an important message. Everybody has that message to share, and they're just waiting for permission. And I'm just here with all of you, giving yourself permission to just share, and it's the most beautiful thing.
Yeah. I wrote into this world not knowing who I am. If I in a human design reading, I was told that, right? And no wonder I was after all the personality tests or assessments or quizzes or this or that. I didn't know who I was. I also didn't love myself, which I also didn't know I didn't love myself. And so coming into this beautiful marriage, it wasn't enough. I still didn't love myself. And that's something I thankfully got figured out. So yeah, it's been an interesting ride. But I've always made sense of things for myself and others. So that was one of the parts of knowing me. And when Terry and I we were getting trained in events, they gave us a whole list of different, pick your music for your event. And it's well, why? I mean, I like anything, whatever, I don't care. And then I really started to think about the songs and well, I don't really like that song. I don't like that one either, And, I realized I actually do have set genres. There's genres I don't like. It's if someone had said, well, what's your favorite color? Didn't have one, What's your favorite flower? Didn't have one. Then I got to thinking, well, my mother always put purple pansies on my cake every year. And I like that. I like pansies. And yeah, I have a purple coat. Okay, well, purple must be, look at me today. Purple must be my favorite color. Right? And then I got to analyze on colors as if purple is my color, and it really is a high vibe one for me, especially.
I think as we all go on our journey, we learn so much about ourselves, right? And the way that society grooms us, and the way that culture and society and generational hand downs, because it's always what our parents were taught from their parents. And I don't fault them, right? Because they did the best they could under the circumstances. Right. It was just a really shitty circumstance. So it was,
learning each generation.
Right. And eventually, hopefully, the next generation will be even better. So, I think as I'm learning about me, I'm understanding more about everyone else. Right. And I'm also even more empathetic than I originally was, because I'm being empathetic towards myself. And I'm really big on that inner decision, right? Because I always look back and I said, well, I'm judging everyone else because I'm judging myself. I think everybody else is lying because I'm lying to them, or I'm lying to myself because I'm lying. Right? Like, I mean, I'm lying to myself. I mean, I'm not even telling myself the truth. So how can I tell anyone else the truth? Right? Like, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know anything about who I was. And I never really understand what I needed or wanted for myself. Right. And stepping into my power and owning it and owning my space. And it all ties in because it's so much to do with understanding your self-worth and finding self. Because once you find self, you can then reflect that out to others, and you speak at a different level to them, right? You find more of your soul's purpose, your higher self, your mission, why you're here, and how you communicate that to others. And it's an amazing journey. It really is. And me, I never tried to fit in any box. I just had a death wish my whole life.
Oh yeah, right.
Wow. What I picked up on is I think for myself, Linda, when I was listening to you speak about how you didn't know yourself, what was popping up for me is I knew what I didn't like. I could tell you instantly what I didn't like. Right. What I couldn't tell you was what made me happy. I had spent a lot of my adulthood. I was married. I had 2 children at that time, where I was making sure that others were happy. I was making sure that others' needs were getting met, and forgetting about myself. And Linda, you brought that up when you talked about self-love. For me, it wasn't until my marriage dissolved, I walked away from a 20-year marriage, that I woke up and realized I have 2 children aged 15 and 17. I'm a single parent. I want to do more with my life. I want to show my kids a different way. I really wanted to claim who I was and what I wanted. And that is when I started on this wonderful journey to self-love. And the more I found I started to fill myself up and really meet my own needs. I'd spent a lifetime not meeting my own needs and not expressing my needs in a way that others could receive. And that's a life of suffering, right? Suffering is optional. And I was in my head and suffering in silence. And now with that self-love and recognizing my own worth and filling my cup up to when it overflows, now I'm ready to have conversations with my clients and with others
Right.
around self-care and around self-love and the importance of both.
Nice.
Oh, that speaks to me so much, Jennifer. Thank you.
Mm.
That our life is, we get to live a life, and this is really Terry Earthwind's teaching, like how we get to live a life. Yeah, that one too. Like we get to live a life in receiving. That, you know, we feel like we're in constant debt. And I'm telling you, from a 10-year-old abusive marriage, I felt like I was in constant debt.
Right.
And to realize that I'm worthy of receiving in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And even like I don't always feel it, but I can manifest it to myself. Like I can speak to myself in a way that makes it clear to me, that reminds me, like it's a daily practice that I get to. And that's really his teaching, like moving from I have to, I must, you know, I must, into I get to receive this today. And living that life. And like when, you know, we can talk about these things, but like being around you, Jennifer, I know that you live it. And that's just the most powerful example of being around people that are living that life, because that makes, you know, it gives me the concrete experience that I'm worthy to. So thank you.
It's been fun to watch you, Jenny. Because think about like your first interviews, you know, it was that like pushing out energy, almost that anxious, nervous energy. And now you're just pulling us in. It's just
so yummy.
And I'm enjoying it. Like I'm having so much fun.
I know, right? Like, yeah, they're like, stop, try, you know, just do your best, right? Kind of thing. Like, try is an interesting word, like you guys
Isn't
know,
it?
but like, yeah, if you're muscle testing somebody, try, their arm goes down. But if you say, do your best, or if they're saying, I'll do my best, it's rock solid. Isn't that weird? And like, we can't energetically hold strong on a muscle test when we're lying. I just think that's so fascinating how the body does not lie. Like, there's a book out there, right?
Yes.
So cool. Yeah. And then we've talked about being connected to higher self too, you know, and I know I've taught both of you how to, you, Jenny and Jennifer, how to muscle test to see if you are connected to your higher self and how to reconnect. But that whole thing's been really fascinating as well.
That's a challenging one.
Yes, because it's really allowed me.
What's that?
Oops.
Like, how's our host doing?
I know, right?
I'm
Michael, are you connected to your higher self? Yes.
I hear my intuition better than I hear anything else. So, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, connecting to your higher self is so important. But it's part of the journey is finding out how to get there, right? And because my first near-death experience, I was 4 years old, which is which is the first time I connected to my higher self, which was very confusing, to say the least. And that's one of the reasons I went to drinking and drugs, right? Because I had to numb it out. I couldn't handle it. There was no humans in my life that understood, and I got tired of being the crazy one, right? Like it was just another label for me, and there was many of them, but that was just another one. You know, and being connected and being present and understanding all sides of ourselves, right? Because there's such a deeper root to all of this, and understanding our experiences and our lessons and why we're here to fulfill purposes and help others and inspire others, share the journey to bring them on their own path, right? And for me, one of the hardest things is allowing others to take their path without wanting to save them the pain. Because I went through so much pain and I've been through 10 to 13 near-death experiences. So I tried to save others from their pain, and it becomes almost like a controlling situation, right? Like I'm trying to control their journey, and it's not my intent, but it's how it comes off. And you know, there's just always a learning process throughout this. There's an enormous learning process. And I don't regret anything I've done in my whole life. Like, I have zero regrets about even the crappiest things, because it's what led me to where I am today and why I'm able to relate to people on so many different levels in so many different ways.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you too.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I appreciate it. It's, and then being stuck, all those years of being stuck, right? Because I got sober in 2006, but I didn't do the emotional work until last year.
Mhm.
So I was basically dry white knuckling it without
Yeah, I was
being.
gonna say dry drunk, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
never touched a substance, but I was never happy either because I never released the emotional trauma. Right. And a lot of it was self-inflicted because it was triggers and all these other things, right? That to self-sabotaging and everything else that creates from that early stage stuff.
Right.
And then I perpetuated it. So getting unstuck was this enormous eye-opening, being stuck in the middle of nowhere process, literally. Like literally, I'm in the middle of nowhere. And I used to say it's my version of hell, but I've come to realize it's really my healing oasis.
Nice.
It's become my healing oasis, and it's enabled me to truly work through everything.
That whole slow down, like Jennifer preaches.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about how you opened saying, Michael, that you want to save others from the pain, and yet I also heard you say that it was you being able to work through your pain that you were able to discover
Yep.
and uncover. And isn't that an, an interesting way of looking at it? I know as a parent, it's been part of my journey is allowing the kids to do things differently from me, even though I know there might be some pain involved. Right? I know, for an example, my daughter is in a relationship right now, and that's always hard to kind of let go as our kids start to grow and develop relationships with others. And as much as I wanted to hang on and tell her everything, or maybe give her all these lessons, the best lesson I've been able to give myself, or the best gift, is to accept and really work through that for myself, to give her that space. Right. And I suppose a lot of that had to do with my childhood. I received a lot of messages on what not to do. I didn't receive a lot of messages on what to do.
Interesting.
Right. And now it's my daughter's turn, and I need to pause. The power of the pause. I want to go in. I want to fix it. I want, look at all this stuff. I don't want you to go through it, any of that. And then it's like, girl,
Right.
take it down. She needs to go through all that. My job now is to support
Yeah.
so that
And
things
that
get
keep
off
it
the
on your
rails.
and it's that keep it
Right?
on your
Keep it
side
on
of the
my
fence,
side.
mom, because they're not gonna listen to you
Yes.
anyways, right?
It's
So
been the
yeah,
hardest
that's the
work.
tough piece.
Right? It's going to take over.
Yeah, and looking back at like our two lives, as you said, Michael, the friction in my life is what the fact that I had choices of my own to act and to evaluate my actions, to fail forward, as Shel Shapiro would say, like to grow with every action. That is, there's such power in my choices, and there's such power and there's such love in people letting go of me, to owning my own choices and grow with them. It's
Love that.
Looking
Right.
back and like so that setting those boundaries, and also with my children, it is a loving act, and I get to be me also, because I mean, when I establish those healthy boundaries, I'm also caring for myself,
Yep.
because that's exhausting. It's exhausting to be controlling everyone around me,
Amen.
to take on responsibility that is not my own. So establishing those healthy boundaries is kindness. I get to be me. Yes, it's kindness because I get to be kind to myself.
Mhm.
Ah,
It's a good one.
And for me, where I've progressed to through this process, right? And I'm very self-aware. I'm unbelievably self-aware of my errors, my mistakes, and everything. And I don't harp on those anymore. Now I use them to adapt and move forward, right? So
Nice.
for me, when I look at it, it's all about allowing, right? Like allowing myself the freedom to be, which then also gives others the freedom to be themselves and take their journey as they
Yeah.
need.
Right.
Mhm.
I think because I'm a true empath, right? Taking people's pain is like, because I feel it either way, and I just want to save them that pain. So I do it for the right reasons. But again, like Jennifer said, and everybody else agreed, taking them away from their own growth process is really a hindrance and enabling them to not feel or grow through it, right?
Right.
Right.
So it's this balancing beam, right? Of how do I handle this, and when do I help someone and protect them from pain, and when do I back off and allow them to just take their journey and still be there unconditionally. And it's been an enormous learning curve because I never said I loved myself until last August,
Wow.
September, August. I mean, I'm 41 and I'll be 42 next month, and I've never said I love myself until last August.
You got me beat by years, though.
Mhm.
Like, dude and I came together, and I was like, what, 55? So,
Mhm.
And we're all on our own journey, right? I mean, it's getting to the point where we can say we love ourselves. It's getting to the point where we allow ourselves and accept ourselves and truly unconditionally, love ourselves to a level of allowing ourselves to be who we are to our best of our ability,
yeah.
and then moving ourselves out of the way to truly be connected with our higher self, right? Because it's about getting the human ego completely, let it be there, let it have some insight, but just keep it out of the way so that the higher self can flow.
Actually, I got a little different twist on that, Michael, because the ego is so much of our human, right? And it's a very important part because it warns us of the future, and so to take that in as like not a fact, it's just as a possibility to consider, if you will, like if you sat down and did the pros and cons list of like making a decision or something, right? Just processing. And I noticed that when you thank the ego, it feels it's done its job. And when you're pushing it away or trying to kill it or trying to transcend it, its job is then to go over to the pain body that Eckhart Tolle talks about, which is eternal, which is not just your past pain or the generational pain of your own ancestors. It's collective pain of the world right now as it is, and the ancestral collective pain. That thing is thick and heavy, right? And so choosing not to live in the pain body anymore is choosing to thank the ego. Otherwise, the ego doesn't feel it's done its job, and it's going to go over there and give you a few example memories to, or pick up old energy, even collective energy or ancestral energy or whatever, and it's going to get you going. So when I talk about walk at the level of your soul, it's a place of healthy detachment. You're not in duality. Everything just is. And if you happen to hear your ego, it's like, thank you, right? Because the ego is a little bit more like child level, not so much like adult advice level, right? And then it goes to get the baby sibling over there, the pain body, and it gets you real worked up. So that's my spin.
I've never looked at it that way. It makes sense though.
Does it?
I hear it. I just try not to let it control me anymore, right? And like
right,
I hear
absolutely.
it and I acknowledge it, right? But
Yep,
I just never
that's what I'm talking about.
articulated. I've never articulated it that way ever. So I think that's a much healthier way than push it to the side and kick it in the face. because I'm a little bit
Yeah.
more blunt.
I love that we can
But-
speak about this with. Sorry, was I interrupting you?
Go ahead, Jenny.
I just love that we have so many different words for this, and the
Yeah.
people who may listen to this, they tap into different kinds of vocabulary. So behind all of these emotions, like emotions that like our feelings, they're not bad or good. They're teaching us, right? So
Yes.
behind all of that, behind my anxiety, behind my anger, behind my pain, there is a lesson because they're trying to serve me. They're trying to keep me safe. And when I don't pause, as you say, Jennifer, like when I'm not pausing to listen, like they're gonna knock down that door, right? So we get to, as you say, Linda, listen, say thank you, and they serve their purpose, and we get to make our decision forward, right?
Right. And we get to dig deeper, right? Okay, notice there's an emotion. Well, where did you come from? Tell me a little bit more, right? And digging deeper and making those associations, is like huge. Because like honoring your emotions, it's not about numbing out. Healthy detachment isn't about not feeling an emotion. It's about doing that inner work, digging deeper, being with it, not running from it, not numbing out from it, and allowing it to present itself and its arguments or whatever, and then allowing it to flow through. I had somebody teach like go to the back of your heart, and then I had somebody teach like open your arms like the ballet dancer and allow the emotion to just flow right through you. And she said you can hold like a little Marian crystal or keep it like in your pocket. And she said that kind of ramps up your energy till your body kind of picks up on it and you learn to do it yourself. And I was like, okay. Everybody has their teaching.
Linda, that is such a wonderful teaching. And I want to share with you that it works. And even just today, before we came on this live, right? My fear and doubt, it still pops up for me. And today I had that conversation with myself and I found myself saying, I feel you. I hear you, fear. I see you. I feel you. Thank you. Thank you for protecting me.
Nice.
Now, what's the message I need to share today? It's really true. I need to acknowledge what I'm feeling so that I can embrace the message that needs to come through me, that I need to share with others.
Right.
I'm really seeing how that fear and the doubt, it doesn't go away. It's not a one and done. The work that I've done on my mindset and the practices that I have allow me to connect with my higher self, because I recognize through my journey that the moment I'm unconscious about what I'm doing and not intentional, that's when all that fear and doubt comes up and it blocks me from my authentic self.
Yeah.
It's been my deepest work.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said need, and so it's like there's a lack way to use need, like I need to do this and I need to, so it's like the get to have to kind of idea. So need is also a word of tapping in, like what do I need right now, right? So when you kind of get over the for lack of better words, level of using need as a lack word, you get to a level of using need as really tapping in to what you need. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool. Like you're
and Jennifer, the fact that you're using this space to share how you were in that spot and you accepted yourself. Like the next time I'm there, I'm gonna be like, me too. It's so powerful, and it's a shared human experience that we have. That can I really can I allow this for myself? Can I enjoy this? Can I? And just like the fact that we're here and we're willing to share that humanity, like our human. it's so much more powerful. Like are perfect as like trying to check the boxes, trying to do everything right, walking into work
Right.
in the morning, you know, having that facade. Like people are never going to relate to that because they know that's not who they are. And I am not going to be connected with myself either. So thank you for being authentic. And it holds that space for me to give myself the permission to be the same.
Right.
Mm.
Such a
And a
lie.
safe space.
Perfection. Such a lie, right?
Yes.
You know, because humans aren't perfect. We can prove
Far
that.
from it.
Seriously. Right?
I think I
And
wrote a
then
book about that.
and our souls are pure divinity. They're perfect, right? And that's why we're striving to be perfect, because we are in touch with who we really are. And yeah, so that getting to that perfectly imperfect, okay, really gives you that ability to let go, right?
Well, for the way that I look at it is I'm a spiritual being living a human experience, right? And that gives me a little bit of the detachment enough to say I don't need to be perfect because it's just a human experience. And then I go deeper and I look at it. The quantum realm has no time or space anyway, so time is man-made, created, which means this existence is already over. Now I'm just living it through and enjoying the experience.
Story, babe. It's all story.
Right. So this is just about it, living the experience, right, and taking the journey and making the most out of these lessons as we get them.
Well, the soul is here to experience the experience, as Antonin Andreeva talks about. The heart is part of the human. So, what do you want? Well, you can't know what you want unless you know who you are, right? And so, yeah, it's just kind of this tough little cycle sometimes. But yeah, being more authentic to who you really are. Like Jennifer said, you know, kind of that first step is knowing what you don't want, right? So fine. What is that? You know? And I always talk about the soul works in onesies. And so we get so spinny when we're like, oh, I have to choose between this and this. And it's like, if you could only choose one, which one is it? Choice and decision just done in a heartbeat, right? And then what one, and then what one, and it doesn't mean it's fact and it's going to happen that way, right? But you at least get your order, and then can choose from there. Like, oh well, what's really most practical in the moment, you know? And you can still by onesies do those choices as well. That has helped my clients a lot because I also do clarity coaching, and I know Jennifer and Jenny have experienced that many times with me. Well,
right? Oh my gosh. I used to sit in indecisiveness so much. And really the freedom came when I started to not be in that duality.
Right.
Anymore.
Right.
And
choose.
Yeah.
And trust that I know. Like it is an inward trust. And claiming my space. Claiming my space has been a journey of letting go of trying to seek my sense of security in outward control and seeking that in like finding it in inward trust. Because I know. And even like talking about imposter syndrome, like we all have our passions, we have our own purpose, and the things that I have so many in my network that like they just want to shout it from the rooftops, and they know, and at some point we start doubting. So like spending that with you, Linda, like coming down to like that inward trust of I know I got this, you know. Yeah, it's so cool. It's really leaving mind.
Yeah, I love it. Michael, do you mind sharing when you were little your death experience? Do you share that with people?
No, I don't go to that depth. I share it one-on-one. I just don't go to that depth on life.
Right.
Yeah,
Like how,
I won't talk about that. I won't. I'm not on a live. I mean, I'll do it as soon as we go off live. I have no problem with that.
well, the only reason I'm
It's
asking
just
is I died on the table having my firstborn. So that was my near death experience. So I didn't know if you talk about like
Mm.
what
I've
led to it.
drowned twice.
Got
I've
it.
drowned twice. I've OD'd 6 times. My heart
Yeah.
stopped twice.
Wow.
I was in 3 car accidents that I should have never walked away from.
Okay. So
I
when
mean,
you
I
were
can
4,
keep,
it was a
yeah, I
drowning
mean,
then? Or it was
no, that
different?
was 8.
No,
That was different. That was
Got
different.
it. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Anyways,
That,
that's the
no,
only
no,
reason I was asking.
that one I won't go into full detail on a live.
That's
I just won't. It's just
totally
unfair.
fine. Absolutely,
Mhm.
totally fine. And so that's I was just wondering what yours was. That was mine. And I didn't even know it for like 2 weeks after. But I just remember looking up in the mirror in the delivery room, and then all of a sudden I was in the mirror looking down, and I was like feeling like that leaving floaty
Mhm.
feeling, and they were handing me they had the baby coming sort of towards me, and I said, I should go back. I think that baby needs me. And so I should
Wow.
on myself at the point of death. And then I think is another lie because the soul knows, right? Yeah. And told a friend that about 2 weeks later, and the now husband said, oh yeah, they had to use the paddles on you. Yeah, your heart stopped. I'm like, what? You didn't tell me that. He goes, oh, you didn't know? I'm like, no, I suppose if someone's, needing to be revived, they don't know. Not sure how that works, but I had no clue.
Each of the times, I did not want to come back. I never wanted to come
Right?
back.
Okay.
I didn't have a choice, and that was part of my
Mhm.
resentment towards God, source, higher power, whatever you want to call. Part of my resentment towards my own soul. Part of my resentment towards me. Part of my resentment towards other things that were in my life at that time.
Right.
Because I didn't want to come back. I didn't want to be here. And I went on to a
Right.
mission to try and not be here.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter how extreme I went, it didn't work. It just didn't
Mhm.
work. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
at some point I just stopped trying to be dead because it wasn't working. I decided to get sober, and I made a pact with God, higher power, source, whatever you want to call it, and said, if you keep me sober, then I'll do whatever you want me to do. And I started on that path, and met somebody. It didn't work out. Settled into a horrible marriage with 2 people that really both sacrificed to be in a really miserable situation. Got my 3 kids out of it, and along that journey have found myself after my kids had to go through apparently what they had to go through, which is horrible.
Right.
But now I'm breaking the cycle. So,
Yeah.
I got them out of the abusive, neglected house where there's physical evidence of the abuse and the neglect. And now it's just waiting for timing because I'm not controlling it. I kind of just gave up on it. I don't know how many more times she can go to court with her lawyer firing her the day before because the lawyer sees the evidence and says that there's ethical violations, and resigns the day before court. But I guess we'll test that theory and see how many times they let her get away with it. So
Wow. That's tough.
it's just a process, and they're trying to heal in a similar geographical scenario to where they were, because I can't leave with them. So they get triggered geographically all the time.
Yeah. Right.
They don't want to do.
Yeah.
And it just turns into just this constant, negative cycle filling right this second. And the legal system where I'm at is very methodical, very slow, very drawn out, and very. It's just that's the way it is in some areas. But they're better than I'm healing. Their healing is their healing on. It's I'm pretty sure my son went through an experience similar to what I went through. He
Oh,
hasn't opened
okay.
up about it yet, but he will. And
Yeah.
but I have I've had all three of them meditate with me. I've had all three of them do, visualization meditations and actually fully open up and fully walk through things. And they're fully connected and fully spiritual. And I'm teaching
What a
them to
gift.
embrace their gifts.
The ripple effect.
I'm teaching them
Love
to
it.
embrace their gifts. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's rewriting what, wasn't there for me at the time. Right. And
Yeah.
it's
yeah.
just,
Right.
And we share. Yes.
Go ahead, Jenny.
We've shared on this, Michael, like that there are some experiences here that we have in common, and I come back to what Jennifer was saying on letting go, and the fact that we love our children, and we cannot control their outcome. We think about their future. We want to make sure that everything is well for them, and in fact, like, we are creating the future with them, being present in this very moment. And I get to be the example. Like, I can like, the past is the past. That's done. So like, my kids had the experiences that they had, but now they get to see a mother who's speaking her truth. They get to
Who's
see a
alive.
mother who is alive.
Who's not dying every day.
My phone started to talk to me because she thought I was talking to her. Oh my god! So yeah, they get to see. They get to see a mother who is alive, who is self-caring, who's sharing them that she is important, because no matter what I say, no matter what I teach, how I treat myself, it is going to be the greatest lesson. And the beautiful thing is that's within my sphere of influence.
Right.
That is something that I can do. I can care for myself. I can use my voice, and they will see it. And that is powerful. It is effective.
Right.
Yeah. They pick up on every action we make. They don't miss anything. They don't miss a single thing.
No, they're like sponges.
Over the last month, I had a thyroid flare because I just ignored my thyroid for too long. My son looked at me one day and he said, "You look like shit. Can you please go back to taking care of yourself because we need you?" He literally looked at me and said that. And this kid's 8 years old, and he's 8 years old. He got abused to no end. But he's also smart as can be, intuitive as can be. And he literally looked at me and said, "You're treating yourself like shit. Will you please take care of you? We need you."
From the mouth of babes.
Right.
Right. And I didn't listen. Don't get me wrong. I didn't listen. I ignored him like my subconscious.
Like Jennifer ignored her son.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
she's got a story.
Yeah. But it's all lessons. It's a learning process. And we need to go through what we need to go through to get where we're going. And as much as that sounds very vague and non-descriptive, it really is if you really simplify it. Because there's no reason to overcomplicate every detail. I do a good job of complicating everything. I don't need to keep going.
Right. Well, and the kids, they're so observant, and they're also super intuitive, and that's like the lead into Jennifer's story with her son. They're on a beach, and he's like, "I think a storm's coming," and they're like, "Nah. You want to tell that one, Jenny? Because that's a great one.
Right? Because he was 7 at the time, and we were on a beach with other family members, beautiful day, enjoying the sun, and all of a sudden my son starts tugging on me saying, "Mom, look at those clouds rolling in. I think it's going to rain or storm." And we're like, you know what, this happens often, it's just going to blow over. And like 10 minutes later, he's like, "Mom, I think there's a storm rolling in. We might want to leave." And of course, I dismiss him again. And what happens?
He's too young.
The storm rolls in.
Oh, he's too young.
It was. Yeah. Right? I thought, how would he know? I know what's
You guys were
going on here.
scrambling,
And
skinning your
sure
knees,
enough,
trying to
sure
move
shit,
fast.
storm rolled in. It brought with it so much rain and hail at the same time that it cleared the beach. People were running, tripping over each other. Some people got hurt. Some people had welt from the hail because we were
Wow.
all in our bathing suits on the beach. And we all collectively could not get to shelter fast enough. And
Right?
to this day, he still reminds me.
Hey, Mom, remember that time?
Right? Oh, yes. He likes to keep me grounded.
That's so cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And part of the reason I love doing these conversations and I love having different people and different topics, and because like Jennifer, when you shared your story earlier about how you felt going into this live, when we share our vulnerability, it gives others permission to do the same, right? And it gives people, it gives people the ability to feel comfortable in their own skin to share their journey. And it's so important because perspectives, like Jenny said earlier, everybody has their own words, and Linda said too, right? Like it's the different verbiage, articulation, however we put it into words. It's going to reach somebody that wasn't reached before because it didn't come in a way that they were able to receive it. So it's very important that everybody shares their voice. It's very important that, people are willing to stand up and share their stories. I mean, after all, that's how we learn for generation, right? With storytelling back and forth,
Yes.
generational knowledge and wisdom, and, sitting around campfires. And now for some reason they believe books are better, which, it's just like my teachers in school who said I needed better grammar, and then now there's Grammarly, so I don't. So
All that
I was right.
isolation we placed on ourselves, right? Yeah, and that was actually Jenny said that, and I totally agree with it doesn't really matter what the word is; it's the vibration and intention behind the word. So, like, you could talk to people from 7 major religions of the world, and you're all still in spiritual agreement because spiritual truth is described in many different ways. It's still there, if you will. And then we could go on to, well, there really isn't any truth. And it's like, yeah, it's true too. You can have crazy conversations.
And
Jenny?
When you were sharing on purple being your favorite color or not, I was like, oh, colors. Like conscious colors.
We've got yours. That gradient green. We got you.
Like when we give ourselves that permission to be us, we create that inner, like we accept, like we have that inner belonging. We're accepting ourselves. We don't need to fit in. Like we already belong. It's one humanity. Then when I show up, like it's like purple and yellow conscious colors. That when I dare to be me, my unique self, I'm just gonna make someone else freaking pop. Because that's what conscious colors do. We just make each other more beautiful. So like, please be you. Like, please, like, you were born to stand out. Please share your story, your unique perception of the world. Like that is what's making this world beautiful.
Right.
And like, don't have all of us miss out on you. Please.
All right. No, when you say conscious colors, is that a thing or contrasting? Because you said conscious, which is like cool. Like, I can really run with that because, okay, so say purple and yellow are conscious colors, right? Purple and gold are crazy. Those are the colors of craziness. So it's like, oh my God, think about it, you guys. Like, there's such a fine line between genius and crazy, right? Conscious and crazy. And there's a really cool, if you guys have Amazon Prime, there's a documentary, I guess you'd call it. I mean, it's really just a talk. This guy's in a spiritual center talking. Anyways, that one is so cool because he's a like a doctor of psychology or whatever, and he was like you, Michael, like basically in his word, in his words, he was like seeing dead people even, you know. So he was singing things and everybody's kind of like, you know, let's bring it down. So he had been up, he was on call, and he said, basically, as an intern, when you're on call for 3 days, you pretty much haven't had sleep for 3 days straight. And he was seeing this guy named Tooth, like Tuth. And in the woo world, that's like a total thing. Okay. And he's like, I knew I couldn't really go to my colleagues on that one. He goes, but I knew a few patients I could go to because he was on the psych ward. So he walks into a room and the guy in the psych ward goes, Doc, who's that guy? Who's following you? And describes what that guy looks like. Right?
Wow.
So cool. Anyways, you guys would love it. It's really deep. It's
What's
like
it called?
It's called Spiritual Awakening or Awakenings. I can't remember. Probably
Okay.
Awakening. Yeah, it's got the chakra, you know, the person sitting there with their legs crossed, you know, kind of meditating and the different chakra circles on it. It's kind of colorful. That's what it looks like. And it's good because he really is articulating the science world and what we know there. And then he has studied with, like, you know, like secret spiritual places, people and stuff. It's really good.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah, I from my experience, right? And yes, I've seen spirits my whole life, and I feel spirits, and I do lots of crazy things and many different practices, and understand and have different universal knowledges that maybe others do believe, and that's fine. There's a very thin line between what people consider crazy versus what's spiritual and deeply connected, right? And science is finally catching up to being able to prove some of it, right, through traces of energy and everything else, which is really entertaining because there's still so many that deny it. But then you have big pharma that just pump people full of drugs and convince them that they're nuts, when in reality there's other ways to prove that they're not. And like there's another documentary. It's called Crazy Wise, and it's on YouTube. It's one word, and it's about schizophrenics and extreme bipolar and stuff like that. And it talks about how they are truly so deeply spiritually connected that they seem schizophrenic.
Sure.
You know, I know mediums that channel different, you know, entities. I know, you know, I've channeled before, and I understand, like, you know, it feels like a different personality or a different person, right? And if you're not grounded, and if you're not aware, and you don't have somebody that can teach you and show you, you're gonna think you're nuts, right?
Right.
And anytime you go through those level up moments, right, of ascension, of going to the next level, or whatever you want to call it, right? There's all sorts of great words for it that we love to label. I call it the shitstorm. But when you go through it, you feel insane because you are so depressed. You're so up at moments. You're all over the place.
You're so not in control.
100%.
Right? And that's the freak out, the crazy
that
making of the ego, you know?
Yeah.
It's one of the greatest human fear. Like, it's one of the greatest human fears to lose control.
Sure, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, that and public speaking.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know that?
Makes sense.
People are
and the word help.
Worried about public.
Do you need help? No.
Yes.
We love to help. We don't want to admit we need it.
No, never.
Or we have a hard time asking for it as well.
Well, that's why, because we don't think we need it. Like, our ego's like, yeah, no, we're good. Get over here.
Well,
even like, are we going to tap into public speaking? Is that what we're doing?
Well, I just like want to go one more place into that borderline world between the worlds, and you know, kids are so connected, and so they are schizophrenic. Like, I think up to age 6, they got plenty of schizophrenia, if you will, because they've got their invisible friends, and they, you know, so if there's trauma, they
Mhm.
don't do what typical development is. And let me tell you, when your baby's laying in the crib and you're looking down at them from this side and this side and this side, and your baby's like, that's my mom or that's my dad, and they recognize you, your baby now has dyslexia. And people go, what? I caused dyslexia in my kid? Yeah, basically. You just taught him to have dyslexia. It's a developmental skill to have dyslexia, to be able to see it is the same thing, only it's, from different angles or whatever. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like, buyer beware. The ABCs that are magnets,
Mhm.
right? Okay, so if you want to help your kids, then don't give them those magnets that float all over the place.
Mm.
Give them grounded things that look like an A or a C or a D or a B, not this floaty stuff. They're good on the floaty, right? So yeah. And the other thing is like choosing dominance. It's a developmental skill to choose dominance. It's a very important thing to have happen in development. After that, be ambidextrous as you want. But that's not true ambidextrous. It's under disability, if you will. So that fascinated me too, like the importance for the brain of choosing and what is all this normal development. And then kids with Down syndrome, they're just younger, that's typical development, younger. And autism is a whole other interesting story too. I could go on and on. You guys know that one. At least Jennifer does. All right, where are we going next?
I just wanted to jump on the stage and talk about, that stage fright that we were going to, because like I'm claiming our space and stepping into our power and using our voice, like even on the freaking stage, when you come to notice, like, yeah, I am a bit nervous. Like, yeah, get me out a bit. To
Right?
just like acknowledge that. Like you don't have to say like that's either good or bad, and you can even share like all of the times like when I've been singing on stage, like I will let the audience know like I'm freaking terrified. I'm so nervous right now. Can you please just applause? And they'll go, what?
That's such a great connector though, right?
Yes.
Love
And
it.
it's like our vulnerability, as Michael, hey Michael, as Michael was sharing, it's an invitation. Our
Yeah.
vulnerability is an invitation
Love
for
it.
connection, and it's such a gift to myself as well as the other. So let's treat it as such. It's really a gift when a person is being vulnerable with you. Ah.
Yeah.
Love that quote of yours,
I
Jenny.
think there's so many ways to get support as well around that public speaking. So many of us in life, in business, at work, are often asked to speak in front of others. It's just not a natural skill. It's one that we can develop. And I find there's so much support out there now online, and groups that we can join and conversations we can have to get us in that right mindset and remind us that we're here to share a message, right? I know I've had to do a lot of mindset work to get me to a point, to a stage, to get me to a point where I can share my message without that fear and doubt popping up.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And wasn't that a teaching in Toastmasters where people would get up and say how nervous they were, and then it's kind of like, you don't need to say that. And then it's kind of like, oh, and if I don't need to say that, I don't need to be that. So I think, that sort of developmental thing again, that's cool too. Because we all say that, we all feel that it's cool. It's the norm. So get over yourself. Like, why bother?
Right. And the other thing is, I chose to get myself in a safe space where I could practice and I could receive feedback in a trusted and safe space. That was really important to my getting over that fear. I still have fear, but being able, not letting it take over.
Right.
And right. And
Constructive
so,
feedback.
yes. Yeah.
Oh, and that takes me to, Jen, how that lesson on learning to specifically, if you want feedback, learning to specifically state the feedback you're choosing to have.
Absolutely. That's so important. Many times we ask for feedback, but we just leave it as an open-ended question. And a lot of times we have an idea in our head of what we kind of want. We just don't identify that. And it's so beneficial when you can clearly say, for an example, please look this over. I'm looking for feedback for this, or this. So that when that feedback comes back to me, I can work with it instead of just the oh, you did that. That sounds great. That was such a good job. I need something a little deeper than that.
Or the other thing I'm going for is the triggering. Like, whoa, like you get feedback that you so weren't expecting, right?
Yes, there's that as well.
Dig through a few memories.
We're not going to trigger. We're not going to trigger.
No. What, Jenny?
when we
Go
are
ahead, Jenny.
connecting on a deeper level, and when we are forming relationships that are, for real, then we, from that place of like, what now? And even like, or stepping on the stage and like that place of fear, we can get really curious. Like, it's like that curiosity, just switch it all. And when we become curious as to like, oh, tell me, like, where's that coming from? And we realize that we really discover ourselves in connection with one another.
Yes.
So as we get curious, we also start caring for that other person.
Yes.
Or we start caring for the audience, because it's really not about me. It's about speaking my intention. It's about speaking my intention. So I get to just be caring for the people that I'm about to meet, for that tricky conversation or that audience. And when we care about the people around us, so those good things keep going on with our brains, and that fear is just
right. And if I were them, what would I want to hear? Right? Being able to put your, like the Native American, walk in the moccasins, right? Till you walk in their moccasins, you don't know, right? So if I'm in their moccasins, what do they really want to hear? Right? In what language do they want to hear it? Right?
Yeah. Keeping that open mind, being curious. You're taking all of that, Michael.
I'm just listening. I spend so much time. I spend so much time talking that it's nice when I do group shows, because then I can actually listen and observe and like hear different perspectives, right? Like when it's me and one other person, sometimes it's, both sides carry, it's constant. When it's the groups, it's more, for me, I'm such an observant person that I like to learn from everybody. And sometimes it takes away from it when it's a one-on-one. But when it's groups, there's more of that time in between to just listen and just really take it all in. And I love it. I really just love it, right? These conversations are important for me and my growth, but I also think by sharing this, obviously has that ripple effect and helps others.
Right.
So it's very important all the way around. And I appreciate you guys also, and I'm always willing to do it again once the internet's fixed. Because me not trying to control the internet thing is irking me a little today, but that's okay. It's making me uncomfortable, but it's fine.
Well, everybody's holding real good solid space to keep the internet going, even though it's challenging.
There we go.
Right?
Yes. It's just being live. I'm live again tonight, so
yeah.
We'll I'm sure it'll work out well when the neighbors are home too, right? So that would be great.
Oh, yeah, that'll be fun.
Because then the kids will be on their 3 iPads. My daughter will be running the TV also.
Say no more,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Oh yeah, then my daughter will have the TV also. My other daughter will have her phone also, and then the neighbors will be home with their stuff running. So yeah, I mean, we're talking about mule speed. I'm gonna literally
driveway.
Yeah, this is gonna be like yeah, this should be
your laptop and your antenna.
Yeah.
get some bunny ears or something. But
Right?
Trying to get some connection here.
any closing remarks from anyone that as this is coming to an end and I need to self-care before my next call?
Yeah, right.
Super grateful for this opportunity to share on this platform, Michael. Thank you so much for holding that space for us today, for this safe space for us to share and be vulnerable. I really appreciate it.
You are very welcome.
Appreciate the work you're doing in the world, Michael. Yeah, you keep up the self-care and keep that center and then work this magic around it that will serve you and others very well. Thank you.
It's been quite the adventure, and it's just getting started, and I'm looking forward to it.
Good.
Yeah, like it's always a pleasure, Michael, and to whoever is listening, like you are worthy.
Yes.
You are worthy of claiming that space that is only yours, and we will all just be richer for it.
Absolutely.
So I look forward to seeing you out there. Yeah.
Definitely. Something about embracing your own power and each person taking responsibility for their own power and space and claiming that for themselves, and then having the ability to choose who they share it with is power. It gives a united power, right? And it amplifies each other. And it's very important, especially in today's world, that people are amplified as much as possible.
Yes.
Because real voices, real stories, real genuine, vulnerable content needs to be readily available a lot more than it is today. So
it's coming. We're seeing some real good things out on LinkedIn. So
we're waking up.
Shifting drastically. So everyone who did watch it, thank you. Who watches it later, thank you. And have an amazing whatever day of the week it is, because I'm still confused on what day it is. So we're good. I know the kids are in school. The kids are in school. That's all that matters. So I mean, the rest of the day of the week, it doesn't matter to me.
Doesn't matter which day it is, as long as it's a weekday.
Right. I mean, it ends in Y, so I know that,
like a
right? And it's good. Yes, seriously.
That's great.
But yes, it's quite the experience. So everyone have an amazing. And eventually the show will end because it takes forever.
Yeah, this was great.
This is while trying to end, we make funny faces.